We are back on Stadium. Braun Przinski, Brock Holt, and Ken Rosenthal joining us right now. Before I introduce Ken, though, let's roll the Fair Territory promo one more time, please? Can we throw that up there? The star of Fair Territory joining us on Foul Territory, and Fair came out yesterday, as it always does, every single Monday. You can follow it on YouTube or wherever you get your pods. Ken, great to see you. AJ is in a feisty mood today. I'm just warning you. How are you today?
I'm good and ready for what AJ might have here.
Ken, how was your rain delay on Saturday?
My rain delay was great, AJ. How was yours?
It was great until you came up in the booth and made me move from my seat, and then the lady yelled at me.
He kicked you out of your seat?
Yeah, because he had to do his hit.
Ken.
The elder statesman.
Scott, let me explain exactly what happened. I kicked him out of his seat because I had to go on television, which is kind of what we do, and I couldn't do it from the field because it was pouring out. But of course, when you've got a diva like AJ in the booth, these things are going to happen. He's going to get his feathers ruffled.
You know what happened? The true story is they said, Ken, you got to come up because there's lightning in the area. And I said, Ken, you're fine. No, lightning's not going to hit you.
The short jokes never get old, AJ. I've only heard them for 60 years. It's amazing. They never get old.
You're that young, Ken?
I'm that young, brother.
All right.
All right, so let's start.
No, I'm going to ask the first question because
I have a fan question.
Okay, no. Ken, what was your report on Saturday about Shohei Ohtani?
Okay.
I believe we were talking about the chances of him getting moved, and I continue to...
What did you say he would not go to?
I did not say he would not go anywhere.
Oh, I thought you said, maybe we were just you and I talking, that you didn't believe he would get traded to the Dodgers.
Oh, well, I will put it this way. The Dodgers do not believe he would get traded to the Dodgers. And yet, when you talk to others, they would say, well, if Artie Moreno ever relents here and decides to trade him, why wouldn't he want the Dodgers in the mix? It's 2 months, for goodness sake, and you'd be getting some of the Dodgers' best players. So that's the Dodgers' belief, and maybe it's accurate. I don't know. But really, all of these conversations that we're having, and they're productive, fun conversations, but they're irrelevant until the Angels actually decide that they're going to do this. Now, keep in mind, they're 5.5 back in the wild card, not insurmountable. And after they get through the Yankees, they've got the Pirates and Tigers. They've also got the possibility of Trout coming back and Drury coming back and some others as well. Ben Joyce in the bullpen, Sam Bachman in the bullpen. So they're not just ready to give up on the season yet. I know we all want them to in a way. A lot of people want them to. I don't really care one way or the other. They do whatever they want to do. But it's not to that point at this particular juncture. We're all speculating. I'm going to speculate some more when I write tomorrow. But I just don't see right now that it's necessarily going to happen.
Well, AJ brought it up because John Heyman said yesterday, Artie will definitely not trade Ohtani to the Dodgers. So AJ was like, no, Ken said that first. So there's a little, insider back and forth going on.
I was giving you credit.
No. It is the Dodgers' belief that Artie Moreno would never trade him to the Dodgers. That's what they think. But I hate to deal in absolutes at this time of year because you often look stupid. And even the absolute, which is not an absolute, but we've been talking, and I've said it repeatedly, I don't expect this to happen. That's not an absolute. If the Angels collapse, in my view, pressure will mount on Artie Moreno. Maybe he doesn't care. He's the owner of a team with arguably the greatest player of all time, a player who, by the way, is having one of the greatest seasons of all time. Maybe you don't want to give that up. Maybe you don't want to give up the extra income you get from having him on your team. I don't know exactly how that works. There is a lot going on here, and there's the emotional connection. Now, granted, we say all this, and we know that the Angels, if they take him to the end of the season, make him a qualifying offer, and he rejects it, then they only get a draft pick in return. They certainly can do better than that in the trade market. But all of these factors are coming into play. And as I've said before, this is not my decision. It's not AJ's decision, not Scott's, Brock's decision. It's not any fan's decision. It's not any other club's decision. One guy matters. That's Artie Moreno.
Yeah, Ken, and if we are talking about Ohtani getting traded, we were talking about this before we had you on. What happens? I'm curious as to what happens with the MVP vote since he's in the American League. If he gets traded to the National League, do those stats carry over, or is it just from when you get traded to the end of the season, how do they vote? Is it Ohtani versus Acuna? If he does get traded to the National League, how does that work? I'm curious.
Brock, it's really interesting, and we had this question on my show yesterday from a fan. People are wondering about this, and first of all, the way the BBWAA rules work, and I checked this with our president Shai Davidi of Rogers Sportsnet yesterday. He could get elected MVP in both leagues. Could. Realistically, would that happen? I seriously doubt it. He'd only have 4 months in one league, the American League, and then he'd only have 2 months in the National League. He's going to be the MVP. Let's say this happens over Acuna or Mookie Betts. It's hard to imagine. But in theory, could it happen? Yes, it could happen.
Wow. Hey, Brock, wait, bring Brock back up for 1 sec. I just want to look at Brock. Where are you at? There it is. Ken, you notice anything? Brock is... I was dying. You've got the horns behind you.
Right out of
They're coming out of your ears.
I strategically placed those horns because I knew Roger Clemens was coming on. Hook 'em, baby.
wow.
That's pretty good. That's strong right there.
Did you go to Texas?
No, I didn't go to Texas. They didn't want me, man.
Wait, we went to where?
They
Baylor?
didn't want the two-time All-Star.
I went to Rice.
That's right. Okay.
My junior college coach, Skip Johnson, went to Texas. He recruited me to go to Navarro and then went to Texas, and he tried to recruit me there, but they had already signed a couple infielders. So he said, hey, Rice. He told the guy at Rice to go get me.
Wait,
and
hold
I ended
on,
up
wait.
at Rice.
Hello? Jose Cruz Jr.? Oh, Brock went to Rice? Oh, why is he hooking him? Okay, I'll tell him. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, tell me.
My turn.
Jose said you're not welcome at the alumni games anymore, Brock. I'm just saying.
Just invite me to the alumni golf tournament. I don't care about the alumni game.
Ken, so you covered this week, and I think there's a lot of flip-flopping going on between everyone. So Ronnie in our chat said, Scott, you think the Padres are sellers now? I'm like, forget me. Let's ask Ken, because I know you've been covering this and really thinking about this, because I know you've written about how much they could do, like in terms of selling if they do. But I mean, they're further out of a playoff spot than the Angels are. Now, I think they have a better chance still of making it, but where are we on the Padres? Is it a day-to-day situation?
I believe it is. And a lot of teams right now are in that situation. The Angels are in that situation. The Mets, to an extent, are in that situation, even though it certainly looks like they'll be sellers. You can talk about the Cubs. Looks like they'll be sellers. Not totally decided yet on any front, because it doesn't have to be decided yet. We're on July 18th. The deadline's August 1st, almost 2 weeks away. Actually, it's 2 weeks away. So there is still time for some of these teams to kind of reverse course. And let's face it, with the Padres and the Mets, we've been waiting all season for them to perform the way they were expected to perform. If the Padres start doing that, they're not going to sell. They're averaging 41,000 in home attendance. They've got tickets sold for the rest of the year. They do not want to sell. They want to compete. They want to try. But my point in what I wrote yesterday was that if it's not looking promising for them, then they could control this deadline in a different way than they've controlled deadlines in the past, because they'd have arguably the best starting pitcher available, or one of them, Blake Snell, another good starting pitcher, Seth Lugo, the top closer, Josh Hader. And if you wanted to keep going, you could trade Juan Soto, who has a year of control left, but still would have a lot of value. And if you're trading those other three guys, you're probably not signing Soto to an extension. He's a Scott Boras guy, likely will go to the open market. It might behoove you to do that as well. So if they do decide to pivot, and A.J. Preller, their general manager, hasn't ruled it out, just as general managers don't rule anything out this time of year, then they would be a very interesting team in terms of what they could offer.
Do you think there's a blame game that's going to take place there soon? A.J. Preller is getting close to a decade of time there. Whether it's him or someone else, I mean, the owner is a star. I mean, he's spending money on the team. He has captured the city, like you mentioned, with the attendance, the star power. They've certainly built up, quite a farm system over the years, and they've traded many of those players away in order to make themselves better. They handed out extensions like Oprah was giving out cars on her show back in the day or whatever. But eventually, I know if I was running a team, I'd be like, this is someone's fault, because this team looks way too damn good. Is it a GM, manager? What do you think's going through ownership's head in a situation like this right now?
Well, the owner, Peter Seidler, has been extremely loyal to A.J. Preller. And generally speaks extremely highly of AJ Preller. And the points you're making, Scott, are points that I've made in print and points others in the game have made. AJ Preller is great at identifying talent, no question about that. Great at collecting talent, not much question about that. Is he great at roster construction, building a complete, cohesive 26-man roster? We haven't seen that. And the other part of this, going back to what you said about him being there almost 10 years, he tore it down once before. 2015-16, remember, they built up and then they tore down. How many times did the GM get the chance to tear down twice? How many times did the GM get the chance to get all of these players, trade for them?
White Sox.
And no, not to this extent, AJ. And it's pretty rare when a GM can do this and do it over and over again, or actually twice, and still keep his job. That said, if the owner believes in AJ Preller and is still fond of him and thinks he's the guy, then he's not going to fire him. But people around the game do ask, while we're admiring AJ for his great strengths, which are great strengths, they do question his ability to put together, as I said, a championship roster. Hasn't happened.
Well, here's another guy, Ken, I want to ask you about that's been in their position for a long time, John Mozeliak in St. Louis. He came out yesterday and basically said, everyone's open for business. I'm going to give you a list of names I kind of compiled that could be for trade. Cabrera, who obviously got DFA'd yesterday, so he's obviously the first one. Flaherty, Montgomery, Gallegos, Hicks, Stratton, Verhagen, Carlson, O'Neill, Edman. Contreras, I mean, they'd love probably to move him if they could. And then last but not least, a name we talked about on Saturday, their third baseman, Nolan Arenado. Would they move him?
I don't believe so, AJ. And all of the others you mentioned, I am sure they would listen on and in some cases be aggressive on. Certainly they're potential free agents. Montgomery, Flaherty, Hicks. For starters, those are guys I think are almost certain to be gone. They're expiring contracts. They're not coming back. Or if they come back, it's as a free agent. That's fine. When it comes to Arenado, it doesn't seem to me that is their inclination. Mozeliak has been pretty adamant that this is not going to be a teardown. In my opinion, this is my opinion, it would be wise of them to explore trading Goldschmidt and Arenado, getting as much young pitching as possible, and putting that young pitching with that group of young position players that they have, with more to come, and kind of retooling on the fly. Now, you'd be without two key pieces, but Paul Goldschmidt's a free agent after next season. If you re-sign him, you're going to be starting with his age 37 season. I love Paul Goldschmidt. He is a great player, potential Hall of Famer, keeps himself in great shape. If there was anyone you would bet on at age 37, it's Paul Goldschmidt. At the same time, is that a bet you want to make? I'm not so sure it is. So now, if you traded him for 2 pennant races, you probably get something really good. Arenado the same. And granted, they both have full no trade clauses. They would control the process. It's always problematic. But if I were the Cardinals, I would at least explore it. It doesn't appear to me that they will.
Well, who's to blame, though, there? Is it Mozeliak? You just mentioned AJ Preller. Is Mozeliak roster construction to blame?
Yes.
Or is it the
Mozeliak
players?
Put together the team. And, well, it's always all of it, right, AJ? But if you look at John Mozeliak and evaluate him over the last few years, now he's had a great run there. And there's no question about that. They've been in the playoffs a lot. They've won the World Series under John Mozeliak. They've done some special things. At the same time, they traded, we mentioned this on the All-Star broadcast, Randy Arozarena and Adolis Garcia, 2 guys who made pretty good catches in the first inning of the All-Star game. Sandy Alcantara, who has won a Cy Young. Zach Gallen, who might win a Cy Young. They haven't gotten much for these guys. And in recent years, they haven't fared well in free agency. Their choices have not been what they wanted them to be. So, sure, I'm sure John Mozeliak would tell you he deserves a good share of accountability for what has happened. And that is baseball. It's the way it goes. No one is perfect. Even as I sit here today, or any commentator, anyone involved in the game, any fan, believe it or not, doesn't know everything either. And it's the beauty of the game. It's the curse of the game. It's what makes it so difficult. But I don't know that John Mozeliak would tell you that he's had a great run here these last few years.
Ken, quit defending your fellow bow tie wearer, okay?
I'm not defending him, AJ. I'm just saying.
Just because he wears the bow ties.
Once in a
You
while
know?
he does. Yeah, he's a dapper man.
He is. He is.
I'm waiting for the day when he comes on our show with the bow tie.
Mo or Ken?
Both.
I don't
AJ,
think
I
you're
can wear
getting
the
either.
bow tie anytime you'd like. But usually I
Okay.
reserve
Just-
it for Fox.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. This is a more casual program. Okay. Let's smoothly finish with our guy Steve Cohen and the New York Mets. So yes, I think some fans are going to be like, you guys talk so much about, especially with Ken, the Cardinals, the Padres, and the Mets. No shit. These are some of the most disappointing seasons we've seen from teams in this status in a long time, Ken. And now we're approaching the trade deadline when all of these teams could be selling away players and could be the talk of the trade deadline. So yes, we're going to go there and you're going to write about them. So give us a little bit about what you recently covered, which has to do with the Mets' high-price talent. Yeah, we know the guys that are going to be a free agent soon, like Robertson and Canna, but I'm thinking about Max and JV. How complicated is it? Too complicated to be able to pull off a deal with one of those two guys?
First of all, Scott, thank you for saying that. And I hear it all the time from people. All you do is write about the Mets. Really? The most expensive team in history. Perhaps the biggest flop of all time. Guess what? They're going to get written about. They're going to get written about a lot. The Padres, not far behind them in terms of payroll. The Cardinals, it's simply shocking what has happened to them. We write about things that are relevant to readers and viewers, and that's the way it goes. And I know if you're a fan of the team, you might not like it. Well, too bad. I'm not here to be your cheerleader and your pom-pom squad.
Tell
All
him,
right,
Kenny.
now that said,
That was good.
said,
Yeah.
JV and Scherzer, they're complicated. Same reason as Goldschmidt and Arenado for starters, in that they have full no trade clauses. So the way I put it in print today was they not only can control the process, they can disrupt the process. That said, if you can convince one of them to go, they also have complicated contracts. Scherzer has an opt-out for next year. If he opts in, it's $43.33 million. Verlander has a conditional player option for 2025. That's for $35 million. It kicks in if he pitches next year 140 innings. So not only is there a lot of money on the books this year, about $14 million each when the deadline hits, there's money in the future, potentially. That would have to be accounted for in any trade discussion. Now, the one thing that gives the Mets a huge advantage is Steve Cohen's wallet. He can pay down these salaries, include cash in the deals to effectively buy prospects. So, for instance, let's say you trade Scherzer and you send $10 million of the $14 million he is due this year to the team. You're telling that team, we'll give you that money, but you're going to give us some better talent than you might have otherwise. It all works in that sense. If you take away the following years, which you'd have to account for in some way as well, with some kinds of conditions in the trade. Problem is, until Sunday, Max Scherzer hadn't pitched consistently well all season. Sunday he was great, kind of like the old Max. Verlander the same. They both have had injury issues this season. So if you're a team trading for them, sure, let Steve Cohen pay all the money, but how much are you still going to be willing to give? And how transformational would that be for the Mets, if at all? It wouldn't be. That was the point of what I wrote today, that the deadline will not be a panacea for them. Next year could be problematic as well for them because they've got basically the same group coming back, only a year older, and they're one of the older teams in the major leagues already. While they've mixed in a few young players, they're still quite veteran. So it's a difficult spot that they're in, and that is the point of what I wrote. I started the column by relating a conversation I had with a fan on the field the other day, and the fan says to me, "Who wants our players, Ken?" And he meant that in a way like, I know that people don't really want our players because of contracts, because of inconsistency, for a variety of reasons. And that's the spot they're in. And yes, I will say it again. This is the most expensive team in history, and not by a little, by a lot in Major League Baseball. When they fail, the way they have failed, that is a huge, monumental story, and it's going to be covered, and it's going to be covered exhaustively.
Hey, Ken, on Saturday when we did the Mets-Dodgers game, obviously we called the game the way we saw it. And to add to your point, I got crushed on Twitter because they're like, you didn't mention Senga's great game. You just blasted the Mets the whole time. I'm like, well, Senga, we mentioned 50 times about how well he pitched. And second of all, they played like shit. So what are we supposed to sugarcoat it and say, man, the Mets dropping that pop-up was the best thing I've ever seen? I mean, I just don't get it. Like, what do you want? You want us to lie to you, or do you want us to tell you what's happening? And you summed it up perfectly, Ken. We're not your pom-pom squad. We're going to tell you the truth. And you know what? If you're a fan, it sucks, because when you're a fan of a team that sucks, it sucks.
Now, I will say this. You say we're going to tell you the truth. It is our opinion, and it might not be right. You might disagree with that opinion. That's fine. I have never a problem with a fan who says, Ken, I think you're wrong. I think the Mets' outlook is actually brighter than you're portraying it to be. That's all well and good. That's good baseball discussion. The only time I get my guard up a little bit and get a little ticked off is when people say, you shouldn't even be writing about that. Oh, really? I think I'll choose what I write about, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Fire me up.
Amen.
Fire me
Let's
up.
go. Let's go.
We
It's
got
the same with this show. Sorry, we're going to talk about Ohtani, Cardinals, Padres, Mets. It's damn trade season right now. That's what the people want.
We got a feisty AJ and a feisty Ken on the show today. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Ken
I
makes
love
me
it.
Oh, and by
Yes.
the way, I'll have a notes column tomorrow with plenty of stuff on other teams. So you can
There we
look
go.
forward to that.
You heard it here first.
Perfect. Yes, you heard it.
John
here
Heyman can't beat you to that one, Ken.
first. Ken, great to see you. We'll talk later.